And I think we actually don't have one. In fact,
okay, I think we are more or less. Railroad to come through the inland northwest. The Northern Pacific came up Esquetzal Coulee, over the hill at Providence, down through Lind, Ritzville, Cheney, and Spokane. It's a typical roller coaster profile. Construction started at the confluence of the Snake and the Columbia in 1879, and they wanted to minimize the amount of rock that you had to move. It was very hard to do construction back then. It was all a matter of muscle. So anytime you encountered this thick basalt, you ended up having a challenge. Ah, good. Here's our geology speaker, and I don't mean to step in the way of what you were planning to say, but I thought, well, everybody is congregated, we'll get something started. But the best way to solve that, of course, is if you build it the right way the first time. And that, of course, was the British approach to laying out railways. Very high engineering standards, but very high expense. One of the things the NP did was they operated on the assumption that if we get it built, the traffic potential is there if enough people come, and we'll succeed in developing a successful business. Well, it cost a lot more to build the NP than they thought it would, and Henry Villard ended up going broke. But it was successful in doing what it intended to do. Washington Territory went from territory to statehood in 6 years after the NP was completed. That's how fast we filled up the Northern Project. In 1903, they were looking at something that they thought would cost under $100 million, and it came in at significantly more than that, like many times that. And so ultimately, the problem was the economy didn't keep growing. It plateaued about the time the Milwaukee completed its main line in 1909, and probably the decision to electrify big pieces of it, well, technologically very smart, were economically questionable. So if you've ridden the Hiawatha Trail, you're riding a portion of this railroad further to the east. And as you can see, if you've been there, very well engineered, very easy climb through the Bitterroot Mountains. But where's the traffic? It missed all the big cities because to take advantage of the best alignment for an engineering standpoint, it missed places like Spokane. The Milwaukee's trains came into Spokane using tracks of other railroads in part, and they left the main line at Plummer, went up to Spokane, and then came back down the UP's line to Marengo, where it meets the main line to the west of us. So this was the last of the Northern Transcontinental Railroads, very well engineered, very well constructed, and the economic historians have been arguing for the last 100 years, was it one railroad too many or not? And we're still arguing about that.
Aspects of particularly the Channel Scabland. But at any rate, he began to bring students out here and declared to the scientific community somewhere around 1922. And he came up with this giant flood. And this did not set well with the scientific community of the day because they had developed this concept of very slow change over long periods of time, which is still a valid concept. However, there are catastrophic things that happen. Volcanoes erupt, earthquakes occur, tsunamis come in. There are possible scenarios, and that wasn't to be accepted, and it took decades of scientific wrangling before, and the accumulation of tremendous amount of evidence that convinced the community, the scientific community, that actually it goes all the way into Pine Creek, and another segment of it kind of goes over on the Belsby Road that you came across. There's you're really on the top of a dry falls. So that's a receding waterfall, and got to a certain point, the water got shut off.
Okay, this is, we'll be encountering two tunnels.
Miles long, so we're only seeing one section of it here. So quite an impressive lake, and again with the recessional cataract we're left with a bunch of vertical cliffs, and so those vertical cliffs have been a real problem for boaters who come up here and get into the wrong situation. The prevailing winds are coming out of the south, and so you can come up here in the morning time and it could look, this is a very, very peaceful day, and so you could come up and get up in nice flat water, and then when you turn around to go back and the wind is coming at you, and you've got actually whitecaps. I've seen whitecaps on these on this lake. You know, go in the morning, no whitecaps. Afternoon, we got whitecaps, and so it could be a very dangerous.
You're right, there is more contact. I do have a sense of the earth. People are scared.
There you go. Oh, yeah. One of them, at least. That's not that what's the one, yeah, where you first come into town? Yeah.
We're trying to plan some now. They also claim the oldest cabin. Well, the oldest cabin in Colfax. We were watching 2 seconds back.